mean practical, save opportunities to help each other in different situations like job search, business referral, house search, finding loans officers, taxes help, legal help, health related help, matrimonial related, and many other types of help. Sadhak Seva means we should not only help motivating others for japa, but also help in other practical ways. Everyone who is a member of Japa conference must also help everyone else in a more practical sense. Presently, please share your name and number to our Everyday Chant Harinam Japa WhatsApp group or email to everydaychant@gmail.com. Thanks. Hare Krishna. हरे कृष्ण नमः सर्वेभ्यः सुस्वागतं भक्तगणं कृपया तौ नामेवं वासनगरे नाम वदतु
Hare Krishna, Nam represent Pune Nagari Musami
हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद की जय धन्यवाद प्रभु जी हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Surinder Bhandari from Maryland. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद की जय धन्यवाद प्रभु जी हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण सुमति माता जी मम नाम वल्ली हम नेपर्वल चिकागो नगरी में वसामि प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद की जय धन्यवाद माता जी हरे
हरे कृष्णा सुमति माता जी एंड समस्त भक्तगण मम नाम श्यामरसिका देवदासी अहम जर्मन टाउन नगरे वसामि श्री प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय धन्यवाद प्रणाम
हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद की जय धन्यवाद माता जी हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्णा सुमति माता जी मम नाम हलाधर दास हम श्रीमूड नगरे वसामि प्रभुपाद की जय गुरु महाराज की जय
हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद की जय धन्यवाद प्रभु जी हरे कृष्ण
हरे कृष्णा मम नाम विकास कुलकर्णी हम टोरंटो नगरे वसामी गुरु महाराज की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय माय humble obeisances to all the devotees on the phone call. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण गुरु महाराज की जय प्रभुपाद की जय धन्यवाद प्रभु जी हरे कृष्ण Hare Krishna. Would anybody else like to announce their name?
Yeah, this is Vinod Maheshwari from Maryland. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Dhanyavad Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Would anybody like to announce their names? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Today we are reading chapter 18, the conclusion, the perfection of renunciation, text number 58 to 60. Hare Krishna, Vikas Prabhuji. Please take over the call now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thanks to all the devotees for joining this call. It is not my position to actually be discussing such a great topic as what is presented, especially because we are in the final stages of where the Lord is actually concluding his message to Arjuna. So at this stage, when we are reading through these verses, we should be recollecting and should be aware of, should have learned through, evolved through all of the shlokas, starting from Arjuna's questions in chapter 1 and then the Lord's instructions from 2:11 onwards. So, this is like, churning out from the milk, the yogurt, from the yogurt to the buttermilk, from the buttermilk to the butter and the ghee out of it, right? So it's a very, every verse in this section is very meaningful. And I want to acknowledge that while I am not capable, I am performing this as a service. and I require your blessings. And speaking of blessings, let's start our class and discussion with Mangalacharan prayers. So, Mataji, Sumati Mataji, if you want to recite the Mangalacharan prayers for all of us, please go ahead.
Sure, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Mangalacharan. मम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्णा
Krishna
कृष्णा
Krishna
हरे
Hare
हरे
Hare
हरे
Hare
राम
Rama
हरे
Hare
राम
Rama
राम
Rama Rama
हरे हरे।
हरे कृष्णा।
Thank you so much, Mataji, for that beautiful recitation. Today we will try to cover verses 58 to 60 because they go again hand in hand. And uh, in order to do so, we will go through the recitation of the verses, then reading of the word for word translation and translation of the words, and also the purport. So, Haladar Das Prabhu, if you want to guide us through the recitation of the three verses, we'll go through the recitation first, then we'll do the readings.
धन्यवाद प्रभु। हरे कृष्णा devotee, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Chapter 18, text number 58. It's page number 698 in English Bhagavad Gita. So text number 58, the wording Machittaha Sarvadurgani Mat Prasadat Tadishyasi Atachitvam Ahankaran Soshasi Nat Soshasi Vinakshasi. Machitta Sarvadurgani Mat Prasadat Tadishyasi Atachitvam Ahankaran Nasoshasi Vinakshasi. Do all three at the same time, Prabhu?
I guess let everyone recite after you, and then we'll progressively go to the next verse after everyone has recited.
Okay.
So maybe Sumati Mataji, if you want to recite the verse.
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Sumati is reading. Machchitta sarva durgani mat prasada tarishyasi athachitvam ahankaran nashroshyashi vinankshashi. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Prasad reading. Machita sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi अतचेत्वा महाकांड्रात्र श्रोषति बिनखंड यच्छसि। हरे कृष्णा।
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I can try. मच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अधचेत्त्वमहङ्कारात् न श्रोष्यति विनङ्क्ष्यसि.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी। मच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अथ चेत्त्वमहङ्कारान् न श्रूयसि विनङ्क्ष्यसि. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Mच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अथ चेत्त्वम् अहङ्कारान् शोष्यसि न विनङ्क्ष्यसि. Hare Krishna. Anybody else who would like to recite the words? And my apologies, in the last line I added one extra na, which is not required. Okay, Prabhuji, if you want to go to verse 59.
Yes. Text 59. Yat ahankaram ashritya na yotsa iti manyase mityesa vyavasayaste prakatistvam niyokshati. Yad ahankaram ashritya na yotsa iti manyase mityesa vyavasayaste prakatistvam niyokshati. Try it, please.
Hare Krishna, Srimati is reading. Yadahankaramashritya na yotsya iti manyase mityasa vyavasayaste prakritistvam niyokshati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Har Prasad reading. Yadahankaramashritya nayo shasya iti manyase vidyasya vyavasayaste iti prakritistva niyochati. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. यदहङ्कारमाश्रित्य नयेत्सत् इति मन्यसे विद्यैष व्यवसायस्ते प्रकृतिं स्वां वियोक्ष्यति.
हरे कृष्ण. यद अहङ्कारमाश्रित्य न योत्स्य इति मन्यसे मिथ्येष व्यवसायस्ते प्रकृतिस्त्वां नियोक्ष्यति. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna, I'll try, Yat ahankaram ashrite na yosate iti manmase mithya esam vyavasaya prakriti tvamam niyokshati.
Very nice, Prabhu. Nice try. Thank you so much.
Good try.
Yahad ahankaram ashritya na yotsya iti manyase mityesha vyasayaste prakriti swam niyokshayati. Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Okay, Prabhu, if we can move to verse 60.
Text number 60. Swabhavajena kaunteya nibaddha svena karmana kartum netsasi yanmohat karishyasi avasopitat. Swabhavajena kaunteya nibaddha svena karmana kartum netsasi yanmohat karishyasi avasopitat. Please try it. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Srimati is reading. स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय निबद्धस्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यस्य अवशोऽपि तत्. Hare Krishna.
I'll try. Savabhavajene kaunteya निबद्धे सवेन कर्मणा कर्तव्य न इच्छासि यत् यत् महोत् क्रियासि अवश्य अपि तत् अवश्य। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna, Har Prasad reading. स्वभावजेन कौन्तेया निर्बुद्धे स्वयं कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् कर्म करिष्यस्य वशोऽपि ततः। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय निबद्धः स्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यस्य वसोऽपि तत्। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय निबद्धः स्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यस्व वशोऽपि ततः। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna. स्वभावजेन कौन्तेय निबद्धः स्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं नेच्छसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यसि अवशोऽपि तत्। Hare Krishna. Anybody else who would like to recite? Okay. So Sumati Mataji and Haladar Das Prabhu, if you can, lead the reading of the word for word, the translation and the purport, and other devotees, please participate. I'll temporarily drop from the call for maybe 2-3 minutes. I'm getting some urgent message to call to India, so I'm going to do that. I'll join back on the call. Hare Krishna. Please go ahead.
Go ahead, Sumati Mataji. You do 58, I'll do 59, then you do 60, okay?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I will be also on mute today. I
Oh,
have to
okay.
go outside and get in. So I will be listening to the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, should I read the word for word meaning or should I read everything? Word for word meaning, translation, and purport.
Now, if somebody wants to read the purport, let them do. If there's nobody's there, then we'll read it, okay?
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, text number 58, word for word meaning. Mat of me, Chitta, being in consciousness, Sarva, all, Durgani, impediments, Mat prasadat, by my mercy, Tarishyasi, you will overcome, Ata, but, Chit, if, Tvam, you, Ahankarat, by false ego, Nashiroshyasi, do not hear, Vinangshasi, you will be lost. Hare Krishna, would any other devotee like to read the translation?
I'll try.
Yeah, Prabhu, go ahead.
Yeah. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in a such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost.
Hare Krishna. I would like to read purport. A person in full Krishna consciousness is not unduly anxious about executing the duties of his existence. The foolish cannot understand this great freedom from all anxiety. For one who acts in Krishna consciousness, Lord Krishna becomes the most intimate friend. He always looks after his friend's comfort and he gives himself to his friend, who is so devotedly and engaged working 24 hours a day to please the Lord. Therefore, no one should be carried away by the false ego of the bodily concept of life. One should not falsely think himself independent of the laws of material nature or free to act. He is already under strict material laws, but as soon as he acts in Krishna consciousness, he is liberated, free from the material perplexities. One should not very carefully that one who is not active in Krishna consciousness is losing himself in the material whirlpool, in the ocean of the birth and death. No conditional soul actually knows that is uh, actually knows what is to be done and what is not to be done. But a person who acts in Krishna consciousness is free to act because everything is prompted by Krishna from within and confirmed by the spiritual master. Hare Krishna.
Very good. So, text 59, word by word. The meaning I'll read. Then anybody is welcome to read translation and then the purpose. Okay. So, text 59. Yet if ahankaram of false ego, ashritya, taking shelter, na yotse, I shall not fight, iti, thus, manyase, you think, mityev eshaha, this is all false. Vyavasayaste, determination, te, yours. Prakritiha, material nature, tvam, you. Niyokshati, will engage. Anybody is welcome to read the translation and somebody with purpose, please.
Yeah. Hare
I'll
Krishna
read the
Prabhuji.
translation. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Har Prasad purport reading. Purport by Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Arjun was a military man and born of the nature of the Kshatriya. Therefore, his nature duty was to fight. But due to false ego, he was fearing that by killing his teacher, grandfather, and friends, he would incur sinful reactions. Actually, he was considered himself master of his actions, as if he were directing the good and bad realm of such work. He forgot that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present there, instructing him to fight. That is the forgetfulness of the conditioned soul. The Supreme Personality gives direction as to what is good and what is bad, and one simply has to act in Krishna consciousness to attain the perfection of life. No one can ascertain his destiny as the Supreme Lord can. Therefore, the best course is to take direction from the Supreme Lord and act. No one should neglect the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the order of the Spiritual Master, who is the representative of God. One should act unhesitatingly to execute the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that will keep one safe under all circumstances. Hare Krishna.
Good. Sumati Mataji, for text 60, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. Word for word meaning, text 60. Swabhava Jena, born of your own nature. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Nibaddha, conditioned, Swena, by your own. Karmana, activities, Kartum, to do. Na, not. Ichasi, you like. Yet, that which. Mohat, by illusion. Karishyasi, you will do. Avasha, involuntarily. Api, even. That. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, would anybody else like to read the translation?
Yeah, I'll read it. Under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction, but compelled by the work born of your own nature. You will act all the same, O son of Kunti.
Anybody wants to read the purport, please?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'm reading. Har Prasad reading. If one Prabhupada ki jai, if one refuses to act under the direction of the Supreme Lord, then he is compelled to act by the mode of in which he is initiated. Everyone is under the spell of a particular combination of the mode of nature and is acting in that way. But anyone who is voluntarily engaged himself under the direction of the Supreme Lord become glorious. Hare Krishna.
Are you there, Vikas Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, I'm back on the call.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, I'll just chant a small prayer for myself. Hare Krishna. So, verse 58, there are, it's like, staccato. Every word in this verse is so much more meaningful. So we'll take a pause on almost every word of this verse. And the very first is Matchittaha. So what does it mean to be Matchittaha? Because the moment we fully understand and realize and live what is meant by Matchittaha, rest of it just doesn't matter. Then there is no need to say here anything. Prabhu, Krishna has already said it in chapter 2. I don't remember the verse, but he says, once you know, there is no more to be said or no more to be heard. So that's really what it is. The moment we become Matchittaha, none of this matters. It only matters when we are not Matchitta. Then Sarva Durgani Mat Prasada Karishyasi, etc., etc. Then we have to know. But the moment you become Matchitta, none of this is really relevant. So what does it really mean to become Matchitta? And let's try to understand, because Matchitta means the first part of that word is Mat, Him, the Lord. So what has the Lord said about Himself in Bhagavad Gita itself? So there, the Lord is, if we start, say, from chapter 2 itself. So chapter 2, verse 12, the Lord says, Natvivaham jatunasam, natvam neme janadipa. So he's saying, never was a time when I did not exist. So the first thing is the Lord is eternal. So we need to, when we are thinking of the Lord, all of these things should sort of continuously come into our mind, and either all of them or at least one of these aspects of the Lord should always be in our hearts. So let's go through the different verses that the Lord has spoken about Himself in Bhagavad Gita. So 2:12 is one such verse where He speaks about Himself, that He is eternal. Then you can say that many verses actually directly relate to the Lord. Everything relates to the Lord, but still I have picked some verses. So in chapter 4, verses 5 to 9, they all relate to the Lord, and He speaks directly about Himself. So there He says, yeah, we all are eternal, but Bahuni me Vyatitani Janmani Tavacha Arjuna. So even though we all are eternal, I remember everything, whereas you are a forgetful soul. So we need to understand our capability versus His capability in that sense. Then the Lord says, when I come on this earth, Ajopi san avyayatma, bhutanam ishwaropi san. So He says, I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates. And although I am the Lord of all the living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So when He is coming here, it is not like He is taking a birth like us, forced by the laws of nature, and taking a body through seminal discharge and coming out of the womb. His birth itself is transcendental. And those of us who have read the book Krishna or the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagvatam, we know the entire manifestation of how the Lord comes in His on His own, in His own form as Krishna, within the presence of Mathura, where Mata Devaki and Vasudeva are imprisoned. So that is this verse 6. Then verses 7 and 8, why He comes, He is explaining. And then verse 9, where He says, Janma Karma Chine Divyam. So, and if you know all of that, you will actually understand things and you will be out of this material world. So that was verses 5 to 9 of chapter 4. Then He speaks of verse 29 in chapter 5. Bhoktaram Yagyatapasam Sarvalok Maheshwaram Suhrid Sarvabhutanam Jnatmamam Shantim Richisi. So we need to understand everything that the Lord speaks about himself, and that will help us become Matchittaha. Thereafter, again, some significant verses the Lord speaks about himself are in chapter 7, where from verses 4 to 7 he speaks about certain aspects of uh, uh, his personality. So there he says, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhiri Vicha. So all the five elements from which the whole creation has come up, the combination of these five elements is really what generates. Basically, atom plus atom creates a different type of thing. And it's basically just different manifestation of shape, size, form, and name. But at the end of it, those five elements are there, and those five elements have come from him. Then the subtle part, the mind, intelligence, and ahankar, that also has come from him. He says they are my differentiated energies. He also says apareyam itistvanyam prakritim vidhi me param. So then he talks about the jivas, and he says they are also my part. And then he says I am the yoni, etc. in that chapter. Then go to chapter 9. Again, there, chapter 9, verses 4 and 5, he speaks about himself. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina. So we need to, the reason I am sort of recounting this is because chapter 18 is conclusion of the entire Bhagavad Gita. And within that, these verses specifically relate to Krishna. And if we think of these verses of all of them or some of them or some aspects of them, we will slowly become Matchittaha. So, I don't want to go through every single verse that is there, but I will at least make a mention of it. Then the Lord actually goes through almost a majority of chapter 7, a majority of chapter 9, a majority of chapter 10 to describe how to understand him, how to relate to him, and how to think of him within this universe. In chapter 11, he actually then exhibits what he speaks of in those verses of 7 and 9 and 10, and he presents his universal form to Arjuna. So where the Lord is saying, I am the very life of every jiva. I am the taste, I am the light, the fragrance, the sound, basically all the senses. So first he says, I am the element. Then he is saying, I am all the senses also. Then he says, I am the intelligence of the intelligent, the strength of the strong. That not only that, then he goes and he says, I am the sacrifice, I am the chant, I am the fire, I am the butter, I am the offering, and I am the outcome. So everything, just that verse, I think is 9:16 or something. It is so important. You can understand that what we take to offer is him. The action of offering is him. The ingredients of that action, the butter is him. The fire is him. The chanting that happens to do that sacrifice is him. The outcome that comes is also from him. So everything is him. That is really the essence of what that universal form is. And then thereafter, how Krishna ends up chapter 11. It is so telling that while that universal form is there, and that universal form, even though so magnanimous and so rare to perceive, is still a manifestation within the material world, beyond which is the super soul form, beyond which is the Vishnu form. And then from the universal form, upon Arjuna's request, the Lord manifests his Vishnu form, which means that even Vishnu form is part of Krishna. And then from there he comes and he exhibits his two-handed form. And he says, this is the most difficult to understand, most rare to observe sort of form of mine. Again, we need to think of this and meditate on it to become Matchitta. Thereafter, chapter 13, verses 14 and 18, Krishna speaks of himself. Chapter 13, verse 23, he says that as a super soul, I am, Upadrashta and Anumanta. So in anything that is happening, I am the overseer and I am the permitter. Then chapter 15, verse 15, he again says that I reside in the heart and from me comes the remembrance, basically the memory, the intelligence and forgetfulness. So in any situation, we act based on what we know of history, the memory applies. So then we can understand what situation we are in, the intelligence on how to interpret that situation or forgetfulness. And generally, the forgetfulness, while it can be situational, the forgetfulness is we are actually the soul and not the body. So that forgetfulness of being the soul is what Krishna is talking about. Then verses 17 to 20 of chapter 15 are again relating to the Lord, where the Lord is specifically speaking about himself in his super soul form and then in his Purushottam form. So all of these verses, when we meditate on this and the characteristics of the Lord, they will help us become Macchitta. Then we can truly understand why the Lord says what he says, what is this he's saying in Bhagavad Gita, why we are entangled, how we are entangled, why we need to come out of all of this, etc. And such a magnanimous Lord, where everything belongs to him, everything is his energy, everything and again, he's created this world. Why has he created this world? For us, because we wanted to enjoy. So, such a great personality, such a loving personality, such a mother or fatherly figure for us. And what does he want in return? He's saying in chapter 9, verses 26 and 27, just give me one flower, one fruit, a little bit of water, and I'll be happy if you offer that to me with love and with bhakti. That is all that he is asking. When we think of Macchittaha, it should bring tears to our eyes when we realize that as super soul, he is spending eternally with us individually, with each one of us, as we go through this universe in various life forms, from the Patal Loka to Satya Loka, the 14 planetary systems. If the soul travels through them, the Lord is continuously with him. It doesn't matter which type of loka it is. It doesn't matter even on Bhuloka which type or which quality of life you are leading. You may be a human being, you may be an animal, the Lord is there with us. You may be a king living very opulently, or you may be a pauper, or you may be a worm in some abominable place, and yet the Lord is in the heart of that worm. Just imagine what kind of Lord that is. Now, it's not only about him being with us in our journey as a jiva all through these 14 planets. There are 28 hellish planets, and when we go through those 28 hellish planets, he's still there with us, always watching, always guiding, always telling what to do and what not to do. I'll give one more thing because it really should bring romance. It should, make our hair rise on their end when we think of it. So we all can understand what love is, no matter whom you love, whether it is our parents, whether it is our children, etc. And generally in this world, they say the mother's love is the most magnanimous when the mother is thinking of the child, right? So in one breath of the mother, how many times would the mother think of the child? Now compare that to the Lord. This whole universe is one breath of Mahavishnu. And within that one single breath, if you just count how many yugas happened, and within one yuga, depending on whether you just go with the Dashavatar or you go with, say 24 avatars that are described in Srimad Bhagvatam, and that is just yuga avatars. So you calculate, and I was doing that I've been, even when I read for the first time Bhagavad Gita, I've done the calculation. It actually works out to 360 million yuga avatars. If you just count, say 10 forms per within, say 4.32 million years, which is one Mahayuga, which is comprised of Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Or it could be 864 million Yuga avatars if you go with the 24 avatars that are described in Bhagavatam. Then there are Manvantaras. I mean, Yuga avatars is just one type of avatar. There are Manvantaras, and there are 504,000 Manvantaras. Then there are Leela avatars, Shakti Avesh avatars, etc. The reason I'm counting this is because within one breath, the Lord comes to his creation, telling them, think of me, come to me, all the time through his actions. Even a mother cannot think of within one breath of her so many times of her own child. So just imagine how loving that Lord is. And this should help us become Matchitta and become stable in that Matchitta. So I took a little bit of time just explaining what Matchitta means. Now think of the word Sarva Durgani. So it's generally when we read Bhagavad Gita, we may think of Sarva Durgani here means our daily problems. Oh, my employment. Oh, the income I make. Oh, the expenses I have. The car, the house, the wife, the family. All these things that we think of are the problems we have. But this is not what the Lord is talking about. This is not the Sarva Durgani. Sarva Durgani here is the moment you are in material world, the Durgas we have to conquer are Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. That is the first problem. No matter in which part of the universe you are, if you are in this universe, those four problems will always be there. If you are in this universe, the Adhyatmic, Adhibhautik, and Adhidevik Tapa, so troubles will always be there in any of the 8.4 million forms, because that is another Sarva Durgani, right? Sarva Durgani is, if you're in human life, you can actually contemplate. But just imagine if there are only 400,000 out of 8.4 million forms which are human life. And then again, within humans, we have so many categories who can understand, who cannot understand, who act like apes, etc., etc. So that is how, that is all Sarva Durga, because if you lose this life, you don't know where you are going within those 8.4 million species of life forms. So let's not think about Sarva Durgani as the Lord is there to solve my daily problem of bread and butter, etc. Sarva Durgani is all of these problems are being solved. He can solve those major problems for us. Forget about the daily problem. So let's understand the purport of the word Sarva Durgani. And even daily problems are there, right? Like even forget about those major problems on a day-to-day basis. Once we've taken form, we have to say live on an average, let's say 80 to 100 years, 360 days every year. We have to go through, every minute, hour of it with some sort of problem. And who doesn't have problem? I mean, the Lord himself showed when he came as Krishna, prior to his birth, death was waiting for him. And then throughout his birth, how many problems he had to face. His devotees, Prahlad Maharaj, excellent example. The life is just full of problems where his own father is inimical to him. Pandavas, another example, right from their childhood, when they lose their father, to all the problems and politics they face throughout life. So who doesn't have problem? But those who think of him are able to get through those. So problems are always there. Even the creation itself, if you think of it, before the creation, when the Samudra Manthan was happening, the ocean was being churned, the first thing that came out was the poison, and then came Amrita. So in any endeavor, Even Krishna says, those endeavors are good endeavors if they first are like poisonous, but in the end, they give you the feeling of Amrita. So problems will always be there. But what is the solace in here? Mat prasadat tarishyasi. So under my benevolence, under my guidance, under my grace, you will come out of those. And there are again so many verses in Bhagavad Gita where the Lord has talked about it. So again, for those devotees who want to read and meditate and contemplate on this, there is a particular verse in Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2, 3rd chapter, verse 10. Akama sarva kamova moksha kamudadi. So basically what that verse is saying is whether you have no desire or you are full of desires or you want liberation, it doesn't matter where you are, what you want, or anything and everything, just go to Krishna and pray to him because he is capable of delivering any and everything. So, and then in Bhagavad Gita, he's given many verses. I'll just say that, how Mat Prasadat Parishyasi happens. So 13:23, 15:15, verses 3:27, 9:10, and 7:14 are significant. So 3:27 is basically Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunakarmani Sarvasha Ahankar Vimudhatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. 9:10 is but the Prakriti is acting under his influence. Maya Dhakshina Prakriti Suyati Sacharachara. And then 7:14. While the material nature is acting, but the Jiva thinks that he is the one who's acting and the actor and the enjoyer of it. And while the nature is acting under the Lord's influence, only when someone surrenders to the Lord that you come out of the problem. So those three verses go hand in hand, 3:27, 9:10, and 7:14. And lastly, in chapter 18, in this very chapter, in verse 14, the Lord says that, there are 5 factors of every action. And the 5th factor is He Himself. So no action can happen without Him being there as being part of it, facilitator of it, etc. And through our own examples, so there are so many examples we can hear from other devotees and our own examples. If we are actually perceptive about life, we will know that the Lord actually doesn't matter what small problem or big problem we have, the Lord will always solve it if you approach Him with sincerity. I have so many examples from my own life, but I'm pretty sure everyone on the call will have so many other examples that they can think of where the Lord has actually helped, provided we had approached Him sincerely. So that was just the first line of verse 58. Now, the second line of verse 58. Atha chetvam ahankaran shroshyasi vinangshasi. So here what is being talked about by the Lord is really in very simplicity, there is antaranga shakti. So if you are focused on the Lord, machitta, antaranga, or bahiranga. So if you are not focused on the Lord, then what? The bahiranga. Then you are basically through the false ego. So you are as antaranga shakti, or when you are in the Lord's consciousness, you are servitor to the Lord. But as bahiranga shakti, the moment your ahankar comes in, atha chetvam ahankaran. So through your ahankar, you are now thinking you are not the server, but you are someone who is supposed to enjoy and the master. Then you start to look at the material nature and you want to exploit it, you want to enjoy it. That's the Bahiranga Shakti of the Lord. The entire material manifestation is Bahiranga Shakti. And the Jiva is always serving. He is always serving, whether it is the Antaranga Shakti of the Lord or the Bahiranga Shakti of the Lord. And what is being talked about is basically the contrast between the two. So the first line is more about Antaranga Shakti, second line is about the Bahiranga Shakti. And the Bahiranga Shakti, if you interact with it, then there is fall down. you will be lost. Now, what does that even mean? Now think of this, that in verse 55 of this chapter, we were talking about Brahma Bhuta stage, that a Brahma Bhutatma. So then when the Lord is now talking about here that you will be lost, the Lord is saying from the consciousness that you are the soul, you will slowly be lost to bodily consciousness. The moment you take refuge under your false ego. False ego is what? That we are not the soul, but we are the body. False ego is what? That I am not the server, I am the enjoyer. The moment that flip happens in our consciousness, now you think of verses 62 and 63 of chapter 2. uh, uh, Vishayan something. So basically, the verses actually, I cannot recall the words right now, but basically, what the purport of those verses is that the soul that may be steady in its determination that it is the soul, the moment it contemplates a sense or a sense object, then it dwells on that. The moment it dwells, it creates an attachment. From that attachment, lust comes. From that lust, uh, if it is fulfilled, further lust comes. If it is fulfilled, more lust will come. Or if it is not fulfilled, or at a stage when it is not fulfilled, frustration will come. From frustration, moha. From moha, memory loss, and from memory loss, uh, intelligence is lost. The intelligence that you are the soul, and then you are completely into the bodily consciousness. So that is what is being talked about. That if you don't act under Matchitta, under his guidance, you are sure to go down into bodily consciousness and keep falling down in that bodily consciousness. And then I talked about Sarva Durgani. So all of those problems may come up. So that is what is Vinangshasi. Vinangshasi is not in the sense that, there is a fall down because, I was a millionaire and now I'm a pauper, or that I used to have a good job and now I'm not. I used to have a happy life and I don't have. It's not that Vinangshasi. Yes, that part is also there, but Vinangshasi, it's here is the very aspect that from the soul one falls down to the bodily sense. And look at the Lord's humility. Here, he is respecting our choice and free will. And this is where Bhagavad Gita is different from other scriptures. It is not commandment. He's not saying, do this. I'm telling you, you have to follow these 10 commands or whatever. He's saying, if you do this, this is going to happen. If you do that, that is going to happen. It's your will. You do what you have to do. Now, one another aspect from verse 58 that we can extract is the reaction, right? Like, so if the Lord is saying, Mat prasadat tarishyasi, why is it that people are not following that? If everyone is facing Sarva Durgani, everyone faces those problems, the problems that I recounted before, then why is it that everyone does not go through it? If the formula is so clear, why people don't follow it? That's because when problems come, everyone reacts to the problems differently. So a person in ignorance, passion, or goodness will react to things differently. If someone who is in goodness, whether through Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or Karma Yoga, will react to the problems differently, and someone in Bhakti Yoga will react to the problems differently. So generally, a person in ignorance will simply get frustrated from the problem itself. A person in passion will introspect, analyze, and then fight or solve the problem. A person in goodness will not only go beyond where the person in passion was, he will now start to contemplate a bit more. Okay, I've fought the problem, I've solved the problem, or I've come to some sort of state from that problem, but why did this happen? What is this? They will start to think about the nature of the world, the nature of the forces that drive the world, etc. So that is the position of the soul in goodness. Now that soul in goodness can evolve from there to being a karma yogi, dhyan yogi, etc. And the next step will be from such contemplation, realization will come. Oh, this is the nature of this universe. I need to not get engaged with it. And they will start to sort of renunciate. So renunciation will come from that realization. But a devotee goes even beyond. So not only the devotee will sort of renounce this material world from that realization, but devotion will come. So this is another aspect of why Mat-Chitta is so important. The moment you think about devotion, again, as I said, none of this is matters, because then the material world does not matter. The problems of the material world do not matter, because you know that you are the soul. You are here in this bodily form, in this life situation, only for a temporary time being, whereas eternally you are in a different mode, and you come out of it immediately. The moment you think of him, you are out of this material world and this Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So that was verse 58. 59 is an elaboration of verse 58. So uh, what I mean by that is, whatever the Lord has actually said, he is just elaborating on that in verse 59. So first line is very simple. Yad ahankaram ashrityana yotsi iti manyase. So if you are going to think about, under your own false ego, and you don't want to fight, that's really what the Lord is saying. Then the significance is in the second word. Nityesha vyavasayaste prakriti swam yog. So word for word is Mityesha. This is all false. Vyavasayaste, if that is your determination. So whatever the Lord has said is all false, and that is your determination, then you will act under Prakriti Swam Yokshayati. So when word for word is translated by Prabhupada in one way, why in translation of the word the Lord says, then you will be falsely directed. So he doesn't say that that will be your determination, etc. If you think what I am saying is wrong, and if that is your determination, he says you will be falsely directed. So there is a meaning behind why Prabhupada translates it that way. Now, why Prabhupada says so is because what the Lord says is the truth, and any other determination is false. So you will be falsely directed. So that's a simple way to understand it. For example, in verse 58, the Lord said, Mat prasadat tarishyasi. But under ahankar, what is one going to do? Under ahankar, the person is going to form his own analysis and go through all those characteristics that I talked of, different types of people. And then they will come to different conclusions. And from different conclusions, there will be different actions. And from different actions, there will be different reactions. And in any case, why falsely directed? Because false direction will come from when do we want to take refuge under our own ahankar and our own nature? Only when we think that I can do something. But do we even have the independence to do anything? As I said, everything is him. The fire, the butter, the offering, the chant, the chanter, the energy that is being said, the outcome, all of that is him. So we are not independent. So it is so simple to understand that even the place where I'm sitting or standing is not mine. That would not happen unless the Lord created the planet or the entire universe. So what independence can I have? Why should I fall and think that, I can solve this? We cannot do anything. I mean, it is as simple as that. It is so simple if you think like that. That why do I take refuge under my ahankar, and that as a body I can do things, or as an intelligent person I can do this, as a strong person I can do this. All of that is coming from him. So it's that simple. The very next breath is not in my hand. It is for him to decide whether I can breathe or not. That breathing can stop like this. So anyways, now what it means is the next part. If you go through that direction and that is how you want to progress further, then Prakriti Swam Niyoksheti. So your nature will bind you and guide you to do whatever you have to do. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. Now, what is again the Lord saying? So why is the Lord saying that you will be engaged in warfare anyway? Because Arjuna, under the false ego, will now use the facilities that are given by the Lord to find his own solution. And the nature being either goodness, passion, or ignorance will force us, or Arjuna, to act differently. Under ignorance, if he walks away from the battlefield, Duryodhana is not going to leave him. He's going to chase him. I mean, they anyway went to the forest. They were only asking for 5 villages. And yet Duryodhana didn't want to give him. Duryodhana said, I don't want to give you even the amount of land that sits on the tip of a needle. So there was no way Arjuna, even if he were to walk away, would have lived. Or Duryodhana would have let him live peacefully. So there would have been a fight. So that is if Arjuna were to act in, say, mode of ignorance. If Arjuna were to act in mode of passion, he would fight there, but not because the Lord is saying, but because he is like, you did this to me, I'm going to take my revenge. That is the person in the mode of passion. And then there is the mode of goodness. If Arjuna takes refuge under the mode of goodness, he's going to listen to the Lord and still fight. So it doesn't matter whether it is ignorance, passion, or goodness. Arjuna as the Jiva, and he is being made an example of by the Lord. But we as our Jiva, either we act under Krishna's guidance or in our under own will. But what is going to happen is his will. It's not our will. So that's really what he's saying. You will nevertheless fight because that is what your nature is. And Prabhupada actually, in the very last part of this purport says so. The Supreme Personality gives direction as to what is good and what is bad. So the question is, if this is true, if the Supreme Personality is giving us guidance continuously, then why we can't hear it? Why we have confusion? And the answer also has already been given by Krishna, because while he is interacting with us one-on-one and is advising us as Suhrid, it is like a radio that is on. The radio never, once the radio waves are out in the universe, the waves are continuously there. Only the receiver has to be turned on. So we, as the receiver, have switched ourselves off when we are not Matchitta. We have to turn our receiver on to understand what he is saying. And why? Even if the radio is on, we are playing some other station. We are engaged with matter and material nature. So while his channel is on and he is continuously telling us, the other noise that we've created because of our engagement with material nature and the gunas that we've developed, which then creates through past actions and keeps shaping our nature, that creates a lot of noise that subdues the voice within. The Lord is always telling, but we have switched ourselves off. We need to switch on, back to Godhead, back inside, listen to the super soul. So that's really what Prabhupada is saying, that he is giving directions to us, what is good and bad. And one simply has to act in Krishna consciousness to attain perfection of life. So switch off the other things, so detachment, and attach to or listen to what the super soul is saying. So that message will become more and more clearer as we subdue the rest of the noise. So there is a lot of noise. If in the room, if everyone is talking, you cannot hear the teacher talking. So as you subdue that noise and you curtail that, then you can listen to the teacher much clearly, much better. So similar, it's just an example, but that's what Prabhupada is saying. And no one can ascertain his destiny, so why not just hand, and destiny anyway is decided by the Lord, so why not just surrender to the Lord? And that is what will keep one safe under all circumstances. So that was verse 59. Verse 60 is further elaboration of verse 59. And Swabhavajena Kaunteya Nibaddha Svena Karmana. So under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction, but compelled by both born of your own nature, you will act all the same. So in this, the two words that I find quite significant are avashopi tat. So why is the Lord saying? Why? As if you are forced. And how are we forced? So the example is, and you would have seen there is this graphic of the three Devis in the cloud, basically holding as if a puppet, the Jiva, and all three have their ropes hanging on which the Jiva is hanging. So basically, our past actions have created certain type of mind, certain type of intelligence. So it is the glue. That glue is attached to the sense and sense objects around us. And it forces us almost avashopitat. Actually, Duryodhana, there is a conversation in Mahabharata between Krishna and Duryodhana. And Krishna says to, give up half of your kingdom, give it to the Pandavas, they will be happy, they are your cousins. Duryodhana actually at one point says, Krishna, don't you think that I don't understand that? I know that is the right thing to do, that is the good thing to do. But this is my nature. Avashopiya. I'm helpless in front of my nature. I have to act the way I have to act. And I'm going to fight and I'm going to take over. He actually, in some moment of sanity, like comes into some amount of sanity. So it's not like everybody is insane all the time. There is a moment of sanity. In moments of sanity, people recognize, but yet perform things differently. Thieves, they know what they are doing is wrong. They know that there will be punishment also. Not only that what they are doing is wrong, there is punishment. Yet they go around thieving. So it is just that avashopiya. And once we realize what is it that is avashopi for me, why do I react to a situation in a certain way? If I take control, then I'm not avashopi. I'm not giving that leverage to my nature to act freely. But even if we end up acting as per our nature in a situation, afterwards we should think, what was it? And how can I control it? And how can I change that avashopi to some amount of control, some amount of wash over the situations? Because that is the difference between the noise overpowering the voice versus you gaining control over the noise. Slowly the noise will come down. So this was verses 58 to 60. In conclusion, very simply, we jivas are tatastha shakti. As tatastha shakti or as the marginal potency, we are going to engage with either the external energy or the internal energy of the Lord. As jivas for millions and millions of births, we've been engaging ourselves with the external energy of the Lord. If we engage with the external energy of the Lord, then because it is binding, because it is so powerful, it is going to direct us forcibly in certain ways, which takes us further and further away from the internal energy. And because the external energy is deluding and deluding in multiple ways, infinite multiple ways, it it fragments our intelligence. It breaks our intelligence down. And in chapter 2, verses, I think between 41 to 43, the Lord says so that steady determination will not come. So we have to move away from that externality to create steady intelligence and steady determination to then serve the internal energy. So that is really all that is. Move away from external facing world to internally looking at Krishna and following his directions. That is the first conclusion that I would want all of us to uh, draw from these three verses and to think about. And then there is the second question that can come. People generally think, oh, I'll begin my Krishna consciousness, I'll become Machitta when my life is slightly more under control. So when my life troubles are over, when I'm free from this trouble, then I'll be, I'll spend time for Krishna consciousness. So let me solve this, let me do this, let my kid get married, let me get into retirement, or let me have this, this situation is just so overpowering, all of this needs to go, and then I'll do it. This is how most of us go through life and think about life. But what is the Lord saying? Mat prasadat parishyasi. The conclusion is our life will become trouble free if we become Krishna conscious. So it is, if you wait to have a trouble free life to become Krishna conscious, there is no end to it. You become, your life will become trouble free the moment you get into Krishna consciousness. Machittaha. So always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And this is where I'll end. Hare Krishna. I'm happy to have questions or comments from everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Vinod Maheshwari. Prabhu, do you live in Maryland area or you live somewhere else?
Prabhu, I am in Toronto, Canada.
Oh, okay. All right. So, very nice, Hari. In a short, in this time, you have gave so much knowledge, so much knowledge. It's gonna take a lot of time to me to understand and all. And especially in this time, when a lot of uncertainty is going on, and you explained so well, I think it's going to be very helpful to me. And you are kind of also summarize the whole Gita, one word. I just can't believe it. I'm getting such a nectar and my comfort at my home and free of charge. I can't believe it. So nicely you explained this time. I thank you so much.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. It is your mercy. Hare Krishna. Anybody with any questions, comments, your own reflections, devotees? It is quite important that you reflect on it.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanavad Pranam. Thank you so much for this nectar in class. As Vinod Prabhu said, you explained so nicely and so much information. And we're going to hear again the recording of the class. And you explained very nicely about how the levels of devotees or the persons to react the problem in their life in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
So,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, so if you have questions, Sumati Mataji.
No, Mataji, you can go ahead.
So, Prabhuji, and person is a devotee and like initiated, second initiated, but then also they face the problem like mode of ignorance, passion. Then how we can deal with them? Like you said, the ahankara comes and then they lost the memory, and then the stages you said, right? So like that. So how can we deal with them? Hare Krishna.
You are asking a question of a person who also himself keeps falling back into the same well. So it's like, I'm talking about a rope that can pull us out of the well, but I don't want you, to make any presumption on my part or give any false impression that I am out of it. I'm also part of that same well, and we keep falling in. But that's where, Very simply put, Mataji, just think of any story from Bhagavatam. Whether it is Indra, whether it is Brahma, whether it is Shiva, the first thing they will say is, Lord, it is your Maya. Under your Maya, I am deluded. Under your Maya, we act the way we act. But please, you are merciful. You know how powerful this Maya is, and you only can take us out of it. So there is actually, I can't recall the instance. The demigods even say, and even though we know that this is temporary, we still are going to ask you for how to give us some benediction in this situation. So you just have to be that humble. At the end of the day, the Lord has said, I am your mother and father. I am the seed-giving personality. I am the very seed itself. So what kind of pretenses should we have against the mother and the father? Just go and ask. Yeah, I made a mistake. Sorry. And this will happen again. It will happen again. I'll try not to do it. But you are merciful. You forgive me. And you keep holding my hand. That's all we need to do. So coming back to Krishna consciousness, starting our day with Krishna consciousness, ending our day. Okay, in between we may fall. But at least if every day at the start you chant a little bit, and every day at the end you chant a little bit, the end and start at least control ho gaya utna, right? You control that much. In between, not 24/7, all the 24 hours, 60 minutes every hour. We may not be like that. We are fallible. So one of the things that I remember, and I really, really loved it, is the Leela where Aghasur is there, right? So all the Krishna's friends are standing there. First, they think it is a cave, but then they all come to a conclusion that it is actually a snake. They come to also know that the snake is going to devour us. The snake is sitting with its mouth open to eat us. Then there is this verse. They actually, Krishna is standing behind, he's standing under a tree. So they turn around, look at Krishna, smile, and then walk into the cave or walk into the mouth of that serpent. What does that tell us? So before we start our day, whether it is 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whenever the material day truly begins for us, we know that we are entering into the mouth of the snake. Let's acknowledge that there is a snake, that we will face its poison. Look at Krishna. Be sure that he is going to help us. Be sure that he will pull us out of that snake. And that's all we can do. I love that Leela so much. And it is so illustrative of how a devotee should be. I think in there, Mataji, you may find an answer. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a wonderful explanation of the verses. And as Vinod Prabhuji said, that he explained it very nicely. And Prabhuji, I really liked your example that when you were explaining that if we do not act according to Krishna's direction, then we will act according to our own nature, which is why we have to also act according to Krishna's direction. And Babaji also explained that sometimes we think that right now I will wait. Right now we've got so many problems, so I cannot give time to Krishna. So when my problems are over, then I'll spend time to Krishna. So this type of mentality should be given up, Babaji. So you explained it very nicely. And thank you, Babaji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Any other question or comment? Or should we close the class here? I know that it is 8:40. I have taken so much time.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This time is all worth whatever you taken. You are making our morning so blissful. As you said, we are about to go to the mouth of Aghasura, and we have to have this lecture. We have to have this lecture in the morning. And as Prabhuji said, in a very short time, also you are giving so much of valuable narrations and inputs that makes us think. Like We are in the world filled with God everywhere. As you said, that example of radio, it is already tuned, but we are closing our side. So how can we listen to that? That is very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. And also you said we will have our own interactions also if you follow the rules, and we know how God will be there around us and watching us carefully, instructing us. That's also so nice, Prabhuji. Sometimes we don't even know what we ask, what we have to ask also. So he is there to take care of everything that we need and that we don't need. Even if we ask, he is not going to allow us to take it. That's what my own experience is. So very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the beautiful lecture. I'm actually getting ready to go to the temple, but I wanted to wait until you complete the class and then only leave. So I'm just listening and wondering how much of devotion and with that type of the power you are teaching us, it means we are getting a part of it at least from your classes. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. It's not me. Trust me, I'm not being humble. I'm not trying to say this just to placate or, make myself sound very good. At beginning of every class, I'm like, I don't know what am I going to speak. How am I going to speak? How am I going to explain? People are coming for, 45 minutes, 1 hour listening. How am I going to give something of useful? And then the words come from him, Mataji. I truly believe because
yeah, you are
uh,
taking the shelter and Krishna is speaking through your mouth, but that's what the happening, Prabhuji. That's what I can say because I can hear that.
Seriously, even a minute before,
Mm-hmm.
I'm struggling for words. I don't know what I'm going to speak.
We also give another classes, Prabhuji, other than this one. Do you have any other lessons where we can join?
No, Mataji, I'm not capable.
Because we want to take more, not just once a week. So if you have any other lectures, please let us know. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Prabhuji, like what said, I see many devotees like you. I think that's the beauty of our system, ISKCON or Prabhupada's Sanstha. I don't know. I mean, whoever takes shelter is just words come so many, so good, so things. There's so many speakers, and I think that's the beauty of our system and whatever parampara we have. So thank you. And hopefully you'll visit us in Maryland soon.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hopefully one day, sure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, with everyone's permission, if there are no questions or comments, can we close with our prayers to Vaishnava?
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। राम संकीर्तन की जय। नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। तो गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल।
विकास प्रभु की
जय।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु
आज के आनंद की जय।
वृक्ष की
हरे
जय।
कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण हरि बोल।